everyone! So I finally read The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I believe that's how you say his name. I actually read it in less than 12 hours. I started it on Friday, and through going home from Albuquerque, through planes and layovers and the bus home, I got it done in less than 12 hours, which has never happened before. I'm not a book reader, and I've said it time and time again. I think I've read at least 10 books on my, even maybe less than 10 books on my personal choice to read them. So that's saying something when it's like so good that I have to finish it in a day, and Perks definitely was. It was amazing, inspiring, entertaining to read, and I really enjoyed it. I easily fell into the book. I was a little wary at first about the first person point of view, so the journal letter kind of layout of it, but I fell in love with it, and I kind of just didn't even think about it after a while. Also want to mention, yes, I am wearing a flower crown. I've had it for over a year, and I thought, why not wear it now? Flower, even though it's necessarily not the same thing. I was like, what is this craze? I forgot I had this, so there it is. I also want to mention this video will have spoilers of the movie because the book and the movie are so different in my opinion that I feel like I should spoil it because the movie is fairly new, but the book is like 15 years old almost, so I recommend to read the book first before the movie. Unless you already saw the movie, then go read the book. Don't just say I saw the movie. Go read the book. It is amazing. Let me tell you, as a non-book reader, it was incredible and definitely worth the read. I'm going to talk about the book first because I read the book first, and so if you don't really know what Perks is about, it is about Charlie, a 15-year-old boy who's going into high school, and he's writing a letter to dear friend, which is the audience, and he's talking about his experiences in life, what happened in his day, or points in his life that really shaped him to be the person that he is and why he is that way today. Talks about his past, his present, his relationships with his family and friends and the people around him. What I also really love is Charlie is never afraid to talk about himself and his personality, that he's very sensitive and he gets very emotional and cries over things. He's also very selfless. He always thinks happiness for others rather than himself, and I think that causes problems, especially with Sam, who wants him to be more emotionally invested in why he never pursued her after she said she didn't want to date younger guys such as himself, and when she liked Craig, and after they broke up and he cheated on her, why did he never go after her? Because he's so selfless and he doesn't think of those things. He thinks, I just want other people to be happy, and that's all that matters to me right now. What I love about the journal dear friend aspect of it is that you are the audience. He's talking to you and he's telling you how the day went, but he's not just doing it, I went and did this today. It's like he's bringing you into the scene or that moment that happened, and there's dialogue part of it. It's like he remembers the entire thing that just happened, and it feels like you're just seeing the scene. But none of this is like he finished writing the journal, love always Charlie, and then he went on to the day and he got a third person point of view. No, it's all in his writing to you, towards the audience, and I think that's really interesting to read and very entertaining. It captures you in. It's like, wow, I need to listen because he's talking to me, you know? I like the relationships with the other people in his life, his family, his friends, his siblings, his parents, all that. His rocky relationship with his sister from the beginning when they were younger, you know, the typical kind of fighting brother and sister, and then how they grew into having secrets together, and how much that he loved his sister no matter how bitchy she was, you know, no matter how much shit she went through, how mean she was sometimes, he still loved her. I like seeing all the aspects of his family with his parents, how they kind of distant they were, but they kind of weren't, as well as his extended family, his grandpa, his cousins, all that kind of stuff, as well as his past with his Aunt Helen and his childhood growing up with her and all that, as well as his past with his friend Michael, who killed himself. I think especially his Aunt Helen and Michael shaped him to be the person he was. Of all those experiences he had, it kind of just shaped him. I don't know necessarily in the best way, but the way he describes all that and how he feels was so essential in the book that it blew my mind, and that it wasn't in the movie at all very much. and you kind of had to figure out yourself. If I didn't read the book, I would have no idea what was going on in this movie. I just felt like the movie is so vague in comparison to the way that Charlie described his life in the book. As if in the movie you just saw what was happening. You didn't see it from Charlie's point of view a lot of the time. And I wish there was more voiceover in the movie opposed to in the book when he was talking to the audience the whole time. I love his relationship with his teacher, Bill, his advanced English teacher, Bill, Mr. Anderson. His name was never revealed except for Mr. Anderson in the movie. So in the movie, you didn't really get to see the whole kind of close teacher-student relationship that they had in the book. He was more as like a wise older figure to Charlie that had to, you know, he could share anything with Bill, and he felt like he understood him and to guide him in a way. And I think that Bill was one of the only people that saw how gifted and how intelligent, how much potential that Charlie had that he didn't even know he had in himself. In the book, I really love seeing his friendships with Patrick, Sam, and the rest of the group, such as Mary Elizabeth, Alice, Bob, whatnot. And how much freedom that they gave him, how much influence they had on his life. In the beginning of high school, he was younger than all of them, and they just opened his mind to so much world that he didn't know that he could experience, like smoking and even masturbation. This is not a kid's movie, a kid's book, let me tell you. Like, I was like, and doing drugs and being free, and he's just so blunt, honest sometimes. I also love Charlie's selflessness towards Sam, like I mentioned before. I feel like in the movie it wasn't the exact same kind of thing. And I feel like in the book Charlie, I just fell in love with his whole type of different personality and the way he looked differently in life. And I really enjoyed reading that. I also really loved and appreciated in the book his friendship with Patrick. It wasn't expressed as much in the movie that I would have hoped for. But in the book, you got to see a lot of after when the whole thing with Brad blew up and Patrick was heartbroken. You got to see Charlie just be a friend for Patrick, and he was just there for him. He needed to be there when he needed him to be. Like, he helped him heal and protected him and stood up for him and just did what Patrick wanted to do. And I think that was so important that it should have been in the movie more than just, oh, he kissed him. You know, it was like, there was so much more that happened, and I just wished all these little small parts were put into the movie because those are the parts I really enjoyed in the book. I also would love to see, saw more of the interaction between him and Mary Elizabeth. I feel like I pictured Mary Elizabeth so different from the movie and the book, and we all kind of interpret it differently, but in my, I just saw it differently, and I just loved the parts where they were kind of dating, he didn't know what to do, and that was so put smallly into the movie that I wish it was just more, you know. I really liked that when he didn't know what to do, and then how much he fucked up that whole thing with Sam and her, and I really liked seeing that. And I liked seeing that Patrick was there to sort of help, but that in the book even Patrick didn't want to talk to him after a while because he was so busy with Brad, and he was just all alone again, and he felt like, well, what the fuck am I gonna do? And he turned to smoking pot, and we never saw that in the movie, and I thought that would have been really interesting and cool to see actually come to life. But not everything could happen in the movie, I get that. The book's always gonna be different from the movie. You know, not everything's gonna be included, but I feel like even the smallest parts are still significant. I wouldn't care if it was a 4 or 5 hour long movie. I think that it was just really rushed, and the things that they added in there just weren't the same as the book. And I feel like now that the author is the same person who directed the movie, he finally got his chance to have a different outcome, different scenarios, added more dialogue, of course, and it felt like you could see these situations that Charlie was writing in the book come to life. That was cool. I thought that was cool because it wasn't just only Charlie's perspective on it. We got to see it actually happen, flow right, but the rest of it, as from the book, I felt like I was disappointed. It didn't flow the same story that I fell in love with into a movie. It was like two different stories with the same people, some of the same situations, but overall different outcomes. I didn't feel personally, emotionally connected and invested with the characters as I did in the book, opposed from the movie. What I loved about the movie is that it was set in the 90s, not just the book was set in the 90s, the story was set in the 90s, but it looked like it was actually made from the 90s. The camera, the lighting, the whole 90s feel that the film was actually made in the 90s, not just set in it. I thought that was cool. It didn't have just like, you know, HD cameras, this crazy new technology. It actually looked like it was set from it. I thought that was such a unique thing that doesn't happen anymore, and I just love that. I was like fangirling over it. Like I said before, there was more dialogue, and I thought that was comforting that the same guy who wrote the book, you know, wrote the new scenes, because if it was a different person, it just wouldn't have made less sense to me. It still didn't really click with me that I really liked everything that was different. It was like, that didn't happen. I don't remember seeing that because it was just so much more different from the book. It was new stuff written, and I think that was the author's due chance to do that. But I did like the banter between Patrick and Sam more. Like, some of the quotes were not in the book that I really liked, like the slut and the falcon, and the below average when he got a C-, and all that kind of stuff was cool. It wasn't in the book, but I still appreciated those things too. The movie was made into more of a romance. In the book, Sam and Charlie never really got to where they were in the movie. I feel like they were just, the outcome was so different, of course, because in the book, they had their kisses, they had their moments, and that was awesome. I thought in the epilogue, maybe they'll get together, maybe they won't, you know. And then when they didn't, I just was like, I accepted it. I was like, okay, that's fine. It kind of made sense that they didn't. Maybe in the future they will. In the movie, they kind of had this dance around this whole entire film that they were just flirting, potential, gonna be, and I did not see that at all in the book. Well, like I said, we all interpret it differently, but I did not see that. I saw it more as Charlie's personal journey just in life, not just about romance, not about just getting the girl, not just about getting the girl and having the friends and having the okay family. Like, I saw something totally different, a message totally different in the book than I did in the movie. I just didn't feel like it was the same thing. It was too much of making it a romance, especially at the end when they were at the tunnel again and he was out on the truck doing, because he was infinite, and they kissed during that scene. That never happened in the book at all. Like, I was really like, what the hell? Did that really, was that necessary? And then they did it, and in the book they didn't. I don't know, I didn't personally like it. I didn't like that part. I wanted it to kind of just, that part to stay the same, and of all the things, like, they should have just left that part to be. But I think they wanted to make Charlie more humanized rather than the way he was in the book. That didn't really, he was kind of like just being himself, and I don't know, I felt like it was a totally different Charlie in the movie. There were just so many missing scenes that I just felt like I was criticizing this movie the whole time and comparing it to the book. I didn't like that there wasn't enough of his family. I feel like that was such a huge part of the book. Basically a half of, maybe more of the book, not just of him and his hanging out with his friends, that impacted his life and shaped him to be the way he is. That would have made so much more sense in the movie. I feel like if I didn't read this book, I would feel like this is a totally different, like, I would have got a totally different thought process out of this movie, because it was more of a love story. It was more of a high school coming of age love story, like cliche, and I just didn't see that at all in the book, and all of a sudden it was something different. And I would love to see more of his relationship with Bill, and he was just Mr. Anderson in the movie. They weren't even, you know, it wasn't. And then I would have loved to see more of his relationship with his sister, them kind of fighting and finding out about his parents finding out about when Candace's boyfriend hit her and her struggles with, you know, dealing with that. And then eventually in the book she kind of found someone else. In the movie she just went single. Like, it would have been more great if we saw like all that stuff in between, which was so great to read. And in the movie it was just so rushed, and I felt like, well, that was it. They were focusing on something else rather than, you know, what could have been more great, in my opinion. But of course, a book is going to have more time and more detail and more description and more pages and more time invested into it. But I feel like the movie was focusing on parts that weren't as significant as they were in the book, and other parts were more. Like I said, maybe it was the author's choice to do that, but I just feel like it was so vague on the parts that I wanted to see come to life, rather than just Sam and Charlie getting together, maybe not. I feel like there was a totally bigger, greater message in the book. There was still a wonderful message in the movie too. I can't, you know, deny that part. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I just felt like I got so much more out of the book than I did the movie. Without those parts, the part at the end where he was suicidal, which I don't think really happened in the book, it didn't make sense. It didn't add up. Why is he sad? Why is he feeling this way? Was it because of Michael? Was it because of Aunt Helen? Was it because of just everything? It didn't, in the movie, it just all of a sudden he was sad and crying, and in the movie he barely cried. He cried once, but in the book he cried all the time, and he was honest about it, and he smoked and he turned to cigarettes for that, and he was just more, and he cursed less, and in the movie he cursed more. It just, those kind of small things I kind of nitpicky about, but I feel like they made Charlie's personality and they made who he was in the book, and it was just too vague in the story, and it just, why is he doing this? Why all of a sudden is he suicidal? I feel like in the book he was very upset and he very confused, and he would black out and doesn't know what the hell's going on, like when he would fight and stuff. That was mysterious on its own in its book, but in the movie it's like, what happened? What? Why is he upset doing that? He didn't do that in the book as so harsh. I don't know, I feel like it flowed better in the book. I did like some of the quotes, that the way they were used in the movie, like, we accept the love that we think that we deserve. I think that's how it goes. In the book, Bill says it to Charlie about his sister after he reveals that his sister's boyfriend hit her. And in the movie, you didn't see his parents finding out anything about that, but in the book, they find out, and she is very upset with Charlie, her brother telling a huge secret, and that's what makes their relationship kind of rocky, and then turns into he helping her and then she helping him kind of thing. But what I really liked in the movie was the tunnel scenes and the music, like Heroes was in there, and just the way that they did that was really awesome. I love that part. And also when he said, I feel infinite, and then they brought it up again at the end, and I swear in this moment we are infinite, I believe that's what the quote is. I thought that was really great. And just that Patrick and Sam and his life now makes him feel infinite. I feel like it's a movie I would watch again, and I feel like it's a movie I'd have to watch again in order to not just keep criticizing, comparing to the book. I did the same thing with the Hunger Games, and I got over that eventually. But the casting was great. I think that Logan Lerman was great. Ezra Miller was great. Emma Watson was great. Paul Rudd was great. I think that was a great thing, but I think they should have done more with Bill as a character. I also really loved, I forgot to mention, the Rocky Horror scenes. Patrick as Frankenfurter was awesome when they were all together at the end of that movie, when they did that scene, not the end of the movie, end of Rocky Horror, and they all had their corsets on, and the makeup, and the feather boas, and the high heels, and fishnets, and that was awesome. I thought that was really a nice touch, because they didn't really get into super in-depth in that. Everyone's going to get a different message and outcome and the thought process on everything. I personally love the book better. I feel like I was more in love with it. I fell in love with it. I loved everything about it, and the movie was okay. I would say I give it a 7 out of 10 and a 4 out of 5 stars, like I did on my Tumblr page, my movies watch page. But I say the book, I give it 10 out of 10. I would say definitely in my top 3 favorite books I've read so far, and I don't really read at all, so you know, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I loved it so much. I would read it again and again and again, and I love this book. It just gave me so many emotions. I didn't want it to end. I thought it was just so brilliant and so well written and incredible, and a wonderful coming of age, teenage, young adult kind of book that I think that anybody in that genre of people, whatever category of people, would really, really love and enjoy. If you haven't read The Perks of Being a Wallflower, please go read the book before seeing the movie. Unless you already saw the movie, go read the book. I'm telling you, it's an amazing, incredible experience. I'm so happy I invested my time into it. It's quick, easy to read with only about 200 pages. I mean, it is so moving and amazing and inspiring, and a great coming of age story that I think it will be loved and enjoyed by many, many people for years to come. So thank you for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you soon. The next book I'm going to be reading is The Fault in Our Stars, so we'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.